What's good, everybody? I'm the G with a PhD, and you're tuned in to the Green Gorilla channel, the place where black men can express themselves freely, straight up, no chaser. I'm going to give it a little bit of time so people can matriculate into the channel. Again, what's good, y'all? I'm the G with a PhD, and you're tuned in to the Green Gorilla channel, the place where black men can express themselves freely, straight up, no chaser. Hit the like and the subscribe button if you haven't already and you're just now tuning in. But I'm going to give a little bit of time for some people to matriculate into the channel. So if you hear some dead silence for a few minutes, it's only because I'm allowing people to filter in to the channel. Brother Cameron, how you doing? Peace to you. It's a Monday, not a Sunday, but I'm still going to allow maybe a minute or more for a few people to filter into the channel. I only got like 10 right now. That's what it say on my screen, but it's a slow day. I know it's a Monday, but it don't stop. The news don't stop. Information don't stop. Work don't stop. Thought don't stop. So why should I stop? It's a Monday. I'm supposed to stop. Tune in, share, like, subscribe. Well, today what we're going to do is we're going to have a conversation about accountability and how you hold people responsible or make them accountable for their actions. Nameless protagonist, what's good, my brother? Thank you so much for the donation. I really appreciate that donation, no matter how small. You can give me 5 cents, I still will take it. So thank you very much, my brother. Yusef Green, how you doing, my brother? I appreciate your presence. Today we're going to talk about accountability. And we're going to talk about how to hold people accountable for their actions. But before you can do that, before you can even begin to ask the question, how do you hold people accountable for their actions? You first have to start off with an understanding about what accountability is in itself. We have to define it so that we can understand it. And then after we've defined it, then we can proceed to lay out the guidelines by which you hold accountable people accountable for their actions. Now, when you start thinking about accountability, the first thing you start thinking about is answerability, blameworthiness, liability. You expect someone to give an account for what they have done. Now, one of the areas where accountability is a given is in governance. It's a aspect of it, right? So when it comes to having conversations about problems related to the goings on, the beings and the doings of the public sector, or for example, also non-for-profit organizations, or even private organizations like corporations, you're going to have conversations about accountability. Am I wrong? Am I right? So if you're in a leadership role, you are accountable. And you have to acknowledge that you're accountable. And there is an assumption rather, that you are responsible for actions, results, decisions, policies, administrative procedures, governance, implementation of policies, and so on and so forth within the scope of the role of your employment or your leadership role. You have an obligation to give an accounting. That's what it's all about. You have to show receipts, as it were. You got to report and you have to explain. You have to be answerable for the consequences. And not only that, take, for example, in governing, you have to move beyond just defining it in a basic way, like being called to be accountable for your actions. It's also presented or perceived as an account giving relationship to make the argument formal. A is accountable to B when A is obligated to inform B about A's past or future actions or decisions. They have to be able to justify them. And they have to be able to suffer punishment if there's misconduct. So you can't have accountability. It doesn't exist without proper practices. If there's an absence of accounting, means there's an absence of accountability. So you got to keep receipts. You got to keep receipts. Now, as it pertains to government, people automatically assume that the people who occupy positions within the government have to be accountable to the citizenry. They have to be able to explain what they voted on if they're an elected official, what their policies are if they failed to meet up to the expectations related to their role. They have to be able to give an accounting. You have to be able to give an accounting. That's an expectation. A leader is accountable for the consequences of their leadership, their strategies, their policies, their procedure, their personalities, the things they do, they are accountable for. And if they're not good leaders, they have to take responsibility for all of the things I just mentioned. Am I wrong or am I right? With accountability comes an accounting, and also comes responsibility. You got to have responsibility if you're going to be a leader. You have to be able to give an accounting for what you've done. You can't be an effective leader and shift the blame, shift it somewhere else, make excuses. You know what they say about excuses? Excuses are monuments of nothingness. They build bridges to nowhere. Those who use those tools of incompetence seldom become anything except for nothing. Excuses. Excuses, excuses, excuses. See, leaders who are accountable don't give excuses. They take responsibility. If you're at the helm of the ship and the ship crashes, you are held accountable for it. Now, another aspect where you find, or of life, where you find accountability of paramount importance is in a corporation. In a corporation. Because many people don't seem to know what accountability is, why it's important, and where it starts, where it begins. And if you want to have a culture of responsibility and accountability, you have to create it. It doesn't just fall out of the sky. You have to work at it. You can hope that people will be accountable, but sometimes you have to force people to be accountable, especially if they assume leadership roles. So let me give you some truths about accountability. Now, if you start off to begin with, if you start off trying to understand it, the first thing you have to understand is accountability begins with you. Specifically, if you're a leader, or you pretend to be, or you assume a leadership role, you're responsible. You're accountable. It starts with you. And if you want to create a culture of accountability, you have to have behaviors that when other people see them, they see you being accountable. If you want other people to own it and be accountable, you got to be accountable if you are a leader. If you make a commitment, you got to stick by it. If you make a promise, you got to stick by it. If you make an obligation, you have to stick by it. And if you don't stick by your commitments, your obligations, and your promises, why should anybody else? Why should anybody else? What's up, Father Time? What's up, Alonzo Hall? If you are not accountable and you are a leader or assume the mantle of leadership, if you are not accountable, how do you expect for anybody else under your umbrella, within the domain of your own organization? How can you expect for them to be accountable? You can't. If you want an organization and a culture of responsibility and accountability to exist within it, you have to be accountable. You got to be. If something fails or is failing, or even if you succeed, you're accountable. A lot of people like to take accountability for success. So when things go the right way, but then they start looking for other people to blame when it doesn't work out the way it should work out. No, 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 no. You, if you're the leader, if you have juxtaposed yourself as being a leader, you are accountable for failures. It's part of the job description. You can't duck it. You can't hide. You can't run because it'll have a negative impact on everybody else's accountability. So let's take, for example, a business. If you're the CEO and the business is failing to make a profit in a particular quarter, or if you've been at the helm of the leadership role of a corporation for 3 to 4 years and the bottom line ain't adding up, if you're in the red and not in the black, if you're not making a profit, as the leader, the CEO, you are responsible. You're accountable. You are accountable. And another thing about it, it's not a one-time thing. You can't get out of it. You can't weasel out of it. You got to always be accountable. You can't just, well, I let it slip this time. No, nope. You can't be accountable when you want to, well, when it's convenient. You got to always be accountable. If you're the leader of a corporation, you don't just get to take vacations. If it's a problem, you're accountable to fix the problem. You got to step up and fix it. You got to be accountable at all times. So it starts with you. You are accountable, and you have to be accountable at all times. And the funny thing about it is, when it comes to accountability, you can't play favorites. You can't decide who you're going to pick to be accountable and who you're not going to hold accountable. You can't, oh, I'm going to look at one specific group of people in my organization, in my corporation, or in the government and hold them accountable at your whim. No, nope. You got to be consistent. Everybody has to be consistent. You can't let one dude or one gal lay down on the job or drop the ball and then not hold them accountable for it. Because guess what that opens the door for? Thank you, my brother, Father Time. Thank you, my brothers. Thank you, my brother. I appreciate that. How you doing, Kendra? What's good? Forrest Windu, what's good? How you doing, brother? So we're talking about accountability and how to hold people accountable for their actions. But before you can even begin to have a discussion about how do you do it, you have to have an understanding of what it is first. So that's why we're having a discussion about what accountability is first. Now, you can't delegate accountability like, okay, you're going to be accountable and the other group of people don't have to be accountable. No, everybody has to be accountable. But you have to set people up to be successful in your organization, in your corporation, in the government, in a private institution, in a nonprofit organization, whatever the case may be. You can't not give people the tools to be successful and then expect for them to be accountable. Because then you're setting people up for failure. If you want people to accept accountability, then you got to give them the tools. You got to give them what they need so they can make the steps towards actually being accountable. And it's very important to understand this. Accountability, like in war strategy, they say, I remember, I think Sun Tzu said this: strategy is the great work of the organization. Those who don't have it lose. Those who have it win. But as a metaphor, I'm using that as an example. Accountability is the same thing. If you have it, you can be successful. If you don't have it, you will fail. If nobody is willing to take accountability, especially in leadership roles, and things start to get all screwed up, and they don't take ownership of it, and then they sit back and they start to feel like they're not invested in it, and they watch it fall, that's not what you want. If you're waiting for somebody else to do it, it ain't gonna get done. You gotta be accountable. You gotta step up and do it. A lot of times people will go into, well, it was them, and they start finger pointing. No, it was your job. It's your job. You're accountable. I used to do construction work, man. And so I did iron work, which means I did some pretty grueling work. Okay. I had to pack rebar. And I also was accountable for the safety of the other people that I was working with. We used to work on swinging stages, sometimes 12, 13 stories in the air. Rain, sleet, or snow, up high in the sky. I'm accountable for the safety of my partner. I have to pay attention. If he gets hurt, I'm accountable for it. He's accountable for his behavior and to keep me safe. He has to pull his weight. If he's not pulling his weight, he's not paying attention, we both get hurt. So if something's going wrong, you got to get into solution mode. You got to figure out what's going wrong and how to fix it. That's what being accountable is. And if nobody's going to hold themselves accountable and they're going to let somebody else do it because they don't feel like doing it or they're making excuses, then guess what? Then you get failure. You get failure. So not only does the accountability, if you're a leader, it starts with you. You are accountable. It's not a one-time thing. It applies to everyone. It can't be delegated. It's the difference between success and failure. And you have to hold people accountable. You can't just say you're accountable and then just let it go. No, 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 no. You got to look at people, review them, assess them, and check in to see what they're doing. Now, let's say, for example, I'm teaching a class, okay? The accountability begins first and foremost. If I'm teaching a class, it starts with me, the professor. I got to give the students a syllabus. I have to create readings. I have to create assessments to determine whether or not they are absorbing the information. I am at the helm of the ship. I'm the captain. I'm the one that's accountable. And I have to always be accountable to my students. And I have to hold them accountable. But as the head, I have to be the most accountable. I got to make the students accountable. And I can't play favorites with those students. I can't let them slide. And I have to make them be consistent. If they don't do the work, they don't get the grade. And they have to take ownership of what they get. They can't make excuses if they don't do the work. And I know that I assigned it. I gave them plenty of leeway ahead of time to let them know when the assignment was due. And that if they didn't perform it in a specific kind of way, then you will not get the grade that you desire. Because everybody starts off with an A. They start off with an A. And they increasingly get what they deserve based on how accountable they are for fulfilling their duties in the context of doing the work that they've been allotted to do. That's just how it goes. If I'm not accountable as a professor, I don't show up. I don't let them know when the assignments are due. I just kind of let everything go. I don't have a plan. I come in unprepared. I'm not even teaching the subject matter. Then they're going to fail. And I'm not going to be successful. They're not going to be successful. They're going to lose out because I haven't done my job. I haven't been accountable. And I have to hold them accountable. I can't just tell them at the head of the class or at the start of the class. I have to demonstrate through the way I assess them that I am holding them accountable. I can't just leave them to it and expect for them to do what they're supposed to do. So I got to set up grades and assess them and give them feedback. And I got to check on them to see how they're doing. And that serves purposes when I do that. It lets them know that, yes, you are accountable for the activities I told you had to perform. And I can give them support if they're not doing what they need to be doing. And I can give them praise, or I can assign blame if they're not being accountable. That's very important. I can praise them if they're being accountable, and I can blame them if they're not. But you know what? Everybody loves praise, don't they? In this culture, it seems like everybody's a snowflake. All they want is praise. I'm doing the best I can. Well, you know, you did the best you could, but it doesn't mean that you merit an A. Well, I deserve it because I worked really hard. Well, look, you might deserve it, but I don't know, I don't know how to measure somebody's what they deserve. I don't know how to do that. I don't know how much effort somebody put into it. You got some kids that are really smart, right? And they don't really have to study as hard as some others. But I'm not measuring effort. I'm measuring results. I'm not measuring the time somebody had to put into the project. I'm measuring the output. If you sat down in 2 or 3 hours and you wrote a 5-page paper and it meets all the requirements that I told you you need to meet, and you got some dude who spent 30 days on the paper, hey, you might deserve an A, but you didn't merit it. You didn't get it because you didn't do what was necessary, what was requisite for you to get that A. So if you do what is merit worthy in relation to meeting the criteria of getting an A, you'll get one. If not, you're going to get a C if you're average, a B if you're slightly above average, and you'll get a D if it's below, and an F if you just fail. The grade system is how you hold people accountable as a professor. Accountability is everything. And you do it by reviewing. This is how you hold people accountable. This is how you do it. You let them know that they will be held accountable. And you try to support them if something goes wrong. And you praise them or blame them. You reward them or you punish them. Y'all don't hear me though. You don't hear me right now. You check on their progress if they're in a leadership role. That makes them answerable. That makes them accountable. Imagine me teaching a class and there are no grades. Everybody just gets an A, no matter what they do. That's not going to work. They just get praised just because they're them. Well, I tried really hard and I had a lot of stuff going on. So what? You ain't the only one. You're not the only one. You all held to the same standards. No excuses, no nothing. And if something ain't going right, I got to tell you, I can give you encouragement, or I can tell you, after I've looked at and assessed your performance, no, this ain't going right. I got to measure you. I have to assess you. Either I'm going to praise you, blame you, reward you, or punish you. And leaders get punished the extent to which, or they get blamed the extent to which they fail at the assigned task of leadership. If they don't get it together and get other people to work in concert to achieve or accomplish a goal, or if one person does something that they shouldn't have done and they did something immoral or illegal, they need to either be praised or blamed for it, rewarded or punished for it. Now, where is all this going? You know where this is going, because this is the Green Gorilla channel, where we say, what we got to say straight up, no chaser. You see, in this culture, we hold some people accountable for things, and we don't hold other people accountable at all. Or if we do hold them accountable, we don't really hold them accountable. You see, we slap them on the wrist, or we don't punish them at all. One case in point. Let's start using some concrete examples of what happens when you have no accountability. There was a guy, man, who just got shot. Kenosha, Wisconsin. Okay? Now this brother got shot. His name is Jacob Blake, I believe. He's trying to break up a fight. 2 women, by the way. So this man, I wish I could put on, Angry man put on Captain Save him, but that's what he was doing. Rushing in like Sir Galahad, Sir Lancelot, trying to do something noble in order to protect women or to stop them from hurting each other. As far as I'm concerned, I'd have let them duke it out. Let them be accountable for what they're doing. I mean, you know, look, if I don't know his relationship to these women, I really don't. I just don't know. But whatever the case may be, they got to deal, both of them got to deal with the repercussions of that. Now, here comes this guy rushing in like a white knight, trying to save the day. He ends up getting shot 7 times. And guess what? The police feel free to shoot black men indiscriminately in the streets. Why? Because they never get held accountable. They rarely, if ever, are held accountable. It's something called qualified immunity. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. Qualified immunity. That means, or basically states, that if there's an officer performing a task in fulfilling his duties as a peace officer, and he uses lethal force on the job, he can't be held to the same standards as that of a citizen who kills someone. He can't be tried in the same way that you could try an ordinary citizen, because he's supposed to be, conceptually at least, performing his duties as a peace officer. But guess what happens if there's no accountability? What happens when there's no accountability? You keep seeing Negroes get shot in the street. Why not? There's no punishment for it. No blame assigned to it. The only people holding people who are police officers who do this accountable, because the Supreme Court, they decided we're not going to even hear it. We're not going to even review the policy, the law of qualified immunity. We're not going to even do it. We're not going to look at it. Can you imagine that? We're not going. The Supreme Court, the court that's supposed to administer justice, basically says, well, you know what? We're not going to even investigate the matter. We're not going to even look into it. Even though there are people out here rioting in city to city to city. We're not going to even look at it. It's not that important. What message is that sending to police officers? What message is being sent? You can kill them anytime you get good and doggone ready. I'm trying not to curse today, as you can notice. I'm trying to be accountable. But that's just one instance. One instance in which you have a failure. Well, maybe it's not a failure to them. Maybe it's part of the plan for them. As far as I'm concerned, it's a failure. So we have to make them accountable. We have to drum up attention related to the issue, because obviously they don't feel like they have to be accountable. Now, let me say something. I'm going to shift the focus for a second, because it's often said that black men, when it comes to killing, raping, murdering, whatever, battering, whatever the case may be, that we're not accountable and we don't hold other men accountable. And on account of that, we don't protect black women. We just don't hold them accountable. Men are not accountable for what they do. I would say that's a bold-faced lie. Because when men do things that are wrong, they get punished for it. They get canceled for it. Now, there are some guys that get to sneak through the cracks. But if there's a beyond a shadow of a doubt that a man did something of a criminal kind, he gets punished for it. Go to jail, go straight to jail. Do not collect $200. Do not pass go. Go straight to jail. You ever see a black man kill somebody indiscriminately on the street? And if he's not held accountable by the law because of the so-called G code, the street's gonna take care of him. Somebody gonna get him because he's gonna be held accountable. Somebody's gonna get him. He's gonna have to pay in some kind of way. The streets have a way of taking care of their justice issues. Now imagine this. You got men now being held accountable for shit that we can't even prove, just hearsay. Me too. Oh, well, she said you did it, bro. So I gotta, hold you accountable for it because she said so. Huh? Because she said so? Okay. All right. I get it. Just because she said so, right? Now, there's been a whole host. Like, take, for example, Bill Cosby, right? It's a lot of women coming out making allegations about what Bill Cosby did years after the fact. Am I wrong or am I right? Am I right or am I wrong? So I'm hitting on the buttons right now. Bill Cosby. Michael Jackson. Whole bunch of people, right? I ain't gonna name all the names. Recently, you got Tory Lanez, you got Trey Songz, you got a whole host of people who are, basically responsible and made to be accountable for the viciousness that they enacted, right? They were punished. They were shamed in the public sphere, canceled, as it were, right? Looked down upon, denigrated, derided, issued a diatribe. Now, none of these people came out and openly said, I did it. I did it. Yeah, I did it. I did this. Now, maybe they're lying. I don't know. Men lie. And women lie too. Women lie also. So one would argue, okay, well, if a person is not saying or coming out and saying, I did it, then you have to reserve your judgment. You have to do an investigation into the matter. You have to figure it out. But what happens when you get somebody who comes straight out in the open and says, I did it, and then they're not held accountable for it? What part of the game is that? take, for example, everybody's media darling right now. I'll take both of them. I'll group them together. They just did a song together. WAP. There's some pros in this house. Now, Cardi B, a couple of years ago, this woman came out straight out the mouth of her own self, her own mouth. I used to rob and drug men and set them up with trannies. Those were her words. I used to take men off to the hotel room. If they wanted to have sex with me, I would take them to the hotel room, drug them, and rob them. Now imagine a man saying he did something like that. Imagine that. Imagine that. Imagine some guy coming out straight out the gate. Yeah, you know what I did? Man, I used to, give girls, man, some date rape drug and used to knock that out. I'm not talking about in a song. I'm talking about like I'm on live. Like I'm live streaming now. I'm on Instagram live, letting the whole world know that I used to just rape women and drug them and rape them. If I had a career, you think that career would still be going? Name one rapper who's been arrested for rape that came out and said, I raped her. Yeah, I did it. I did it. Oh, I did that, man. Like she was looking like a nice juicy steak, man. I had to hit that. Any means necessary. Life been rough for me. I had to come up. I had to find a way to come up. Now you got award-winning music being made. The woman has met with the presidential nominee for the Democratic Party, talking about what she wants in relation to justice for Black people. Although, one could argue, Dominicans, have a big problem with identifying as Black. But we don't want to go there now. I see my brother Adam saying, well, Tupac said he didn't do it. Tupac say he ain't do it. Tyson say he ain't do it. Pimp C say he ain't do it. Mystical said he ain't do it. It's a whole host of people that said, I didn't do it. Now, maybe they're not being accountable. But they were held accountable because they were punished. They were punished. They went to prison. What's up, man? Friday. I already said that Bill Cosby went to prison, and he denied it. Like, man, like these women came on to me. These women were like down with this, man. Like, what's good? Kobe Bryant. Now imagine a man saying that he undertook the kind of actions that Cardi B did, and then he's just right back where he was. No scrutiny. He's all good. That's not holding people accountable. But although they did make a stir about it, though, I will grant you, they made some sort of stir about it because they had Cardi B gate. So she was under the fire for a little quick minute, but then it kind of went underneath the radar. Just as quick as it came was as quick as it ended. She felt the heat for a minute. But then you get Meg Thee Stallion. I showed you the video. It's on my channel. What she's talking about, yeah, he had it coming. The N-word, the N-I-double-G-A had it coming. I ain't gonna lie. I was putting my Emma effing hands on blah, blah, blah. You know how the story goes. Now imagine a man just coming out in the open. I mean, and she did it like laughingly, like jokingly, funny. Ha 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 ha. I mean, the whole pretext of the conversation starts off with, I'm so embarrassed. My mugshot look ugly. Huh? So you having a conversation about why you were arrested, charged, and basically had to deal with the repercussions of domestic violence, but it's funny to you only because of how your mugshot looks. That's why people have reservations about the veracity of the young lady and what went down and why she might have got shot. I don't know what happened. I am suspending my judgment till I find out what happened. Because first it's like, well, I got out of the car, then he shot me. Then she's back in the car when the police come. Then, okay, well, so I'm confused. Did you get shot? Did you get shot in the car or out the car? Were you walking away from the car and got shot, or did you get shot before you walked out of the car? Like, what happened? What happened? See, we got to talk about accountability, not just for one group of people, but for everybody. If everybody's remember, I went through this. I'll go back through it. Accountability starts with you. It starts with you. You as a leader are accountable. It's not a one-time thing. You can't be accountable. Sometimes you got to be accountable all the time. And it applies not just to some people, but to all people. Everybody has to be held accountable. Everyone. Even the context in which, man, we saw this black woman, and I said this on the last show I had, right? Where the woman basically is acting loud, obnoxious. Like, if you're gonna have that energy, you got to carry that energy to the end. You can't just come with that energy and then, then the energy gets brought back to you. Now you're subjected to injustice. Now you're being like subjected to violence. No, lady, you provoke that violence. You got to walk it like you talk it. You got to bring it like you sing it. You can't walk up to a grown man, tell him, I'm going to whip your ass. I'm going to whip your ass. I'll beat your ass. And then get shot when somebody presses you on it. You got to use your head. You have to be held accountable for that. Even the white woman who pulled the gun, she's got to be held accountable. But you reap what you sow. You get what you put out. Sometimes you don't, though. You know, sometimes bad things happen to good people. But I know, I damn sure know that if you're putting out negative energy, you're going to receive some negative energy. You put out energy like that tough energy, I guess y'all would call it hyena energy. You put out hyena energy, people are going to test you on it, male or female. It's part of being accountable. You got to be accountable. Not sometime, not part of the time, all the time. And that's why our communities are failing, why our families are failing. Because you got a lack of accountability all across the board. Nobody wants to be accountable. Everybody wants to make excuses. One thing I know is that you make a promise or an obligation to someone, you are accountable for the promise and the obligation you make. But in this culture, You don't have to do that. You can make a lifelong commitment and then take it back because, well, I'm not satisfied right now. I'm not happy right now. Huh? How you get to just do that? So you mean you got somebody else who's obligated long term? You're only obligated for what? Temporary? Oh, I'm not happy now. So everything I said I was going to be accountable for, I don't want to be accountable now. I'm going to the courthouse. Like, why would a man want to sign up for that? Why? There's no accountability in it. If there's no reward or punishment assigned to obligations and commitments, that means that there's no accountability related to those commitments and obligations. You shouldn't be able to get a reward if you don't meet your expectations and your obligations. Now we reward people for not meeting their obligations and their commitments. Oh, you can divorce him and take half of what he's. We talk about performance. If you're a leader, right now, I can tell you right now, women are starting to take government positions. They're starting to take government positions. More and more every day, they're becoming representatives, senators, VPs. You even got women on the Supreme Court. They got to be held accountable. There's no way you can now hold those women accountable. But we have a problem holding women accountable in this culture. When it comes time for leadership, there's no way you cannot have accountability. Can't have it. You have to be accountable. There's no, well, she's a woman, so we're going to give her a little bit of leeway. Nope. No. Not when it comes to leadership and government, no. Or corporation, no. On a job, no. Either you can do the job or you can't do the job. Either you're a success or you're a failure. If you're succeeding, then you get rewarded. If not, you get punished and you get blamed. You got to take it all. But we have a culture in this country, well, woman commits a crime, she's more likely to do 60% less of the time that a man is related to the same crime. That's not accountability. How are you going to step up into a leadership role and then you get less severe punishment or less severe blame or less severe, sanctions just because you're born with a vagina or a uterus? How does that work? If you're a leader, you're a leader. If you're a human being and you're equal to every other human being, then you got to take the good with the bad. You mess up, you got to take that lump. There was a woman who shot a man dead, killed him. They ain't even charged the woman. Well, they charged her, but then they let go of all the charges because there wasn't sufficient evidence. I want to see if this happens to your boy Lane. With this woman, well, I fell over and I shot him 6 more times. Come on, man. Big white lady, big old lady. The only way you can hold people accountable is to praise or blame them or to reward or to punish them. But see, we don't have the capacity to punish women in this culture. We don't have the ability to do it. And you know what the biggest impediment to that is? The women are wonderful effect. The desire, the seeming, it's like a mystical trance that's been cast over men, like a sorceress came and made it be such that Men have been turned into pigs, like Circe from the Odyssey. I don't know if you ever heard of or read the Odyssey, written by the Greek poet Homer, with Ulysses as the main character. And he goes on a journey, the Odyssey, the quest, and he gets shipwrecked, or they cast their anchor at an island, and it's a witch on the island. And on the island, the woman is able to change men into pigs. Which many women have the power to do now. They have the capacity to turn men into pigs. That's metaphorical, meaning that men sometimes get cast under women's spell. But we don't have the capacity to punish women when they do things that are horrific. We don't even have the capacity to perceive women as having the ability to do evil. I'm not saying all women are evil. That's not the claim I'm making here. I'm saying as a culture, we have been indoctrinated to treat women as if things happen to them and that they don't make things happen. If things are happening to you, how can you be accountable for it? If you're a passive actor on the world stage, you're nothing but perpetually oppressed. You're a perennial victim. How can you be held accountable? If the prevailing narrative in the culture is, well, how could the circumstances were such that she couldn't do anything otherwise than what she did. How can you hold them accountable? How? God forbid, man, we get a woman who's the president of the United States and we get into a war. A war. Because, of course, as you know, the president is the chief of the armed forces. That's the ultimate level of accountability that you can have in this society. But they yet and still find ways to duck it off anyway. Presidents find a way to duck off accountability all the time. But the point is, one would argue or could argue, you got to be held uber accountable, ultra accountable. But we have a problem with it. We don't know how to punish women. We always perceive women as creatures that are so soft and dainty, and at all places and at all times, they need protection. They couldn't possibly make it on their own. They're telling you they can be on their own. They're telling you I can be independent. This is what you want. When you say I'm stepping up, I'm on my own, I'm independent, I'm taking care of by myself, the circumstances that I'm in, you got to provide for your protection. Nobody, no men as a whole aren't accountable for that. Man Friday, am I accountable for your specific protection? Herb Saint, am I responsible for your protection? Charles Irby, am I responsible for your specific protection? If something's happening to you, do I have to, am I obligated to make sure you good? Am I going to shame you because if you see me get my head knocked in on the street, especially if I'm starting some drama, like you supposed to come up and help me and save me from my own foolhardiness, my own rashness, my own abrasiveness, my own ignorance? No, men hold men accountable. Look, you shouldn't have said what you said to that dude. That's why you got slapped in your face, boy. That's why you got hit with that hammer. That's why you got hit with that lead. You should have kept your mouth shut. You should have apologized. Men don't have a big time problem with holding other men accountable for their actions of saying, you did wrong. That's why that happened to you, bro. Now, this don't have nothing to do with Meg the Stallion by himself. By herself. Or Cardi B by herself. This is a general indictment of our culture. We need to learn how to hold women accountable. And we need to hold black men are already held accountable to such an extent that if they make one wrong move, bang, 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 bang. Jail, 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 jail. Go straight to jail. Cancel, cancel, cancel. Oh, you said something wrong in the public? Time for you to go to jail. Time for you to lose your job. Time for you to lose your career. Time for you to, to get shot, killed. I shouldn't have said what I said. That came out. That's not a Freudian slip, man. That's just a mistake. Because I think Megan is a woman. I think she is a woman. Okay. I just think that you're running around here acting like you're rough and tough and you got an attitude. That kind of attitude, that disposition brings negativity and drama back to itself. It does. I'm going to leave the link just in case any of y'all want to comment on this, and then I'm going to be out of here. But the only way you can hold people accountable for their actions is to praise and blame them or to reward or punish them. Those are the only alternatives. There is no other way to hold people accountable for their actions other than to praise them or to blame them or to reward them or to punish them. And we have a problem with seeing women get punished. And if we have a problem with seeing women get punished or to see them get blamed when they fail, then we're going to have a problem with female leadership. We're going to have a problem with it. It's going to bring about a whole host of problems. Does anybody care to comment on this? Because if not, I'm going to close this session out. I'm going to go ahead and get up out of here. Does anybody care to join in? I'm going to give it 2 minutes before I close this out. But again, let me go over this. Just to give you a synopsis. Accountability is answerability. It's blameworthiness. It's account giving or praiseworthiness if you did it the right way. In the government, you're answerable to the people who elect you or to the citizenry. A CEO is answerable to the shareholders of the corporation and to the employees and to the consumers. If you're the head of a family, you're answerable to the people who are underneath you, who are under your stewardship as either a mother or a father. You're accountable for your children, to your children, and to society at large. There's no getting away, ain't no getting around this. But right now, you can't even, one thing you have to be able to withstand if you are a leader is critique. You have to be able to take critique. If you are a leader, you have to take critique. And right now, we have women in leadership positions. More often than not, women are the leaders of families in this nation, especially in the Black community. They run the households. You the leader, you're accountable for the children that you pump out and their education and their general virtue or viciousness. It's not the kids don't come out knowing anything other than what you teach them. They have a tabula rasa. You get to shape and mold a child into what you want to make them into. You say you got a problem with boys and men and they're all doing crazy stuff. You're accountable for their education and their general virtue or viciousness. If you're the leader of the family, and men have to be held accountable too. Men have to be held accountable as well. But anyway, the only way you can hold people accountable for their actions is to praise or blame them or to reward or to punish them. That's it. We already know men, especially black men, we get punished for what we don't do. I just wanted to throw that out there. So anyway, brothers, man, have a good Monday. It's the start of your week. Be good, be prosperous. I want to thank everybody who donated. I want to thank Father Time. I appreciate it. I want to thank the nameless protagonists. I really appreciate it. And also, there was another brother that healed me up. But I want to thank y'all, man. And thank you for coming through. I'll see y'all later, man. Peace.